NHL lockout approaches what should be the heart of its regular season, research at Brock University is shedding some light on the long-term impact that work stoppages have on fan loyalty. While some fans are turned off by the characterization of billionaire owners arguing with millionaire players, researcher Craig Hyatt says the NHL stands to take an even bigger hit because of fans who simply find other sports to watch and will not come back when the lockout ends. An associate professor for sports management at Brock Hyatt Research Sport Fan Behavior, his latest study looks at the former hockey team fans, people who stopped cheering for a favorite team and never switched their loyalty to a different team. And of course, he's here with us now, associate professor of sport management, Brock University, Craig Hyatt, and he's on the line now. Hi, Craig. How are you today?
I'm well, Scott. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to join us. There's certainly been lots of talk on this, I think because fans have lots of time on their hands right now and are willing to discuss it. But I don't know. I can't help but thinking, Craig, that once it's all over, we'll all go running back, just, licking the television, waiting to see our favorite team on the ice. No?
Well, most fans will. I'm certainly not here today to tell you that the majority of people who are going around saying that this is it, it's over, it's done, I'm never going back to hockey, are being truthful. Because 8 years ago, we were in the middle of a similar lockout, and so many fans said that. Now, most of them did go back, but I've discovered many fans who didn't, and I'm interviewing these fans, people who stopped cheering for their favorite NHL teams for whatever reasons. But what I'm hearing over and over again, especially with people in their 20s, is that the turning point was the lockout of 2004-2005.
So, and that's what's interesting in all of this is here we are talking about the present day situation and what's going on now, but you say this is deep-seated back in 2004, 2005, and fans still are not over this.
The current fans, people who consider themselves NHL fans right now, obviously got over it. But there were many who dropped out in 2004 and 2005 who aren't talking about hockey right now because they haven't been fans in years.
Were they diehard fans? Would they be considered fringe fans?
Most of the fans that I've talked to considered themselves fairly diehard, if not very, very diehard.
Are you surprised at this, that they left and didn't go back?
Well, I'm not surprised. I am someone who does this for a living. I get paid by Brock University to understand sport consumer behavior. That's my area of research expertise. Mm-hmm. So many years ago when this was going on, there were many people who said, I'm not going back. So I can't tell you the percentage of people who did go back versus the ones who didn't go back. But there were so many people who said, I won't go back. I figured that many of them wouldn't. And what I'm discovering now, I assumed that if someone said, oh, I was turned off by the lockout in 2004, 2005, that it would be somewhat of a philosophical difference between your average working Canadian who's trying to buy some tickets and watch some games versus these millionaires and billionaires. But for every person who says it was philosophical, I get two or three who said it was just a question of filling your time with something else. So they were willing to wait out the lockout. They were upset. They were angry. But ultimately, your average fan spends about 10 to 15 hours a week following their favorite hockey team. And with the lockout on in 2004, 2005, that freed up 10 or 15 hours to do other things. And what would a sports fan do? They would find other sports they never had time to follow when they were busy cheering for the Wings or the Canadians or the Leafs. All of a sudden, they turn on the TV, and there's the NFL, there's the NBA, and after a few times of watching it, you start to get hooked. And once you're hooked, by the end of the season, if you consider yourself a diehard NFL or NBA fan, there just isn't time to go back to hockey because you've now, essentially you've gotten a divorce from your former wife and you've remarried.
And you said it's not so much about the sport, it's about the storylines within the sport.
Well, to become a fan, there's a certain amount of storyline there. Sports marketers and sports media types won't just say, "Oh, watch tonight's game," but they will tell you, "Watch tonight's game to see if Drew Brees can keep his touchdown streak alive," or "Watch tonight's game to see if this rookie, first-round draft pick is going to blossom into a star." And these are things that would get sports fans interested who might not otherwise be interested. So consequently, that hooks you, and then you get into these storylines, and that is what builds fans of teams typically.
But, it seems that all sports eventually go on strike. What happens when the one they run to has the same problems?
Oh, that's a good question. And in fact, I was expecting that many of these people would turn towards sports that don't go on strike. I mean, if you're a National Hockey League fan and you get frustrated with the lockouts and strikes that seem to be coming up fairly regularly, I expect many of these fans would have told me, "I'm now a huge Ontario Hockey League fan."
Right.
Or I've gone back and cheered for my alma mater that plays CIS hockey. Mm-hmm. But there's actually been very, very little of that. I'm quite surprised.
So they're more likely skipping sports altogether, like not sports altogether, but moving to a different sport.
Yes, moving to a different sport. Although of the 17 people that we've interviewed, 3 of them have cited that they just got caught up in something that seemed so real at the time. And they're now questioning the culture of big-time North American spectator sport and whether it's worthy of all of our time and attention. So we have a few people who have turned off sports altogether.
Interesting. So obviously this is a good time for other sports, because if one league goes on strike, then there's going to be sampling not just for the same sport, but for various sports.
Exactly.
Can we see an increase in those sports already?
Well, I emailed a few former students of mine who work for the Hamilton Bulldogs this morning, and I said, "Well, I'm going to be on the radio in Hamilton. You might want to listen," and et cetera, et cetera. "Oh, by the way, how are the Bulldogs doing?" And they claim that the American Hockey League, at least in Hamilton, is going gangbusters.
It is, yeah.
Because that's the best hockey available in Southern Ontario right now.
Yeah, good point. It's great for them. What can sports leagues, what can teams, what can the players, owners, commissioners, what can we all learn from this?
We can learn that just because you have so many people who are diehard right now and say they can't live without their Leafs, or they can't live without their Canadiens or the Blue Jays or whatever sports team, that when it's taken away, they have nothing but time to think about what they're doing with their lives. And if they're still into sport, they can go and look for alternatives. And once they find something, if you're still not playing, not everyone's going to come back, and those people could be lost forever.
So obviously the longer this goes, there's more of a chance of this sort of thing happening.
Yes. Yeah, the longer this goes, the worse off the National Hockey League will be for sure.
When this eventually does get resolved, and who knows whenever that is, what does the NHL have to do to get as many of these people back as they possibly can?
Well,
how do we make everybody feel good about this when it's all over?
Oh, well, you might or might not remember 8 years ago when that lockout ended, the league told all of the teams to paint a message on the ice saying something like "Thank you, fans," or something like that. It was quite distracting. I remember the first few months back from that lockout. But the idea that the league will try and get all of the teams' marketing departments to come out and sort of come with hat in hand saying, "We did what we thought we had to do to save your team, to save the league, to save hockey. Please forgive us. Maybe here's a ticket deal. Maybe here's a special promotion to welcome you guys back. Maybe here's some community relations or public relations, and get out into the community and do a better job of appearing grateful." If they can do that, then you will be able to keep a lot of your fans and get them to come back. but no matter what they do, they've already lost a few of their fans. I wish I could tell you exactly what percentage, but I'm afraid I don't know. But I am developing much more of an understanding of the rationale why people walk away from sports.
And do the fans pretty much put the blame on both sides? Is it evenly split this time out?
It is evenly split.
Yeah.
People were somewhat more sympathetic with the players, I think, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they're not sympathetic. Personally, as someone who studies the business of sport, I can only imagine what it would be like for these players to be offered these huge contracts just days before the lockout. They sign them, and then they find out that the owners don't want to honor the contracts. So I can feel for them, but at the end of the day, these are 10, 20, 30, $40 million contracts. So I can feel for them to a point.
I hear you. If people want to find out more about any of this, is there a website we can go to, Craig?
Well, I don't have a website, but I have an email address. I'm actually still recruiting people for this study.
Oh, great.
So if anyone out there...
If there's any hockey fans out there that want to voice their opinions...
Well, I'm especially looking for research participants who no longer are NHL fans. My email address is Craig.Hyatt, CRAIG.HYATT @BrockU.ca.
All right, Craig Hyatt, Associate Professor of Sports Management, Brock University, still looking for some feedback if you want to voice your opinion. Craig, thanks very much. Much appreciated.
It was my pleasure, Scott.